Hope you guys had a great New Year. Another Sunday scan for you guys. Thank you guys always as leaving all the comments and whatnot. I really appreciate your feedback. This year we'll get a little bit more active on the channel as far as some videos and whatnot. We've obviously added quite a few. Some of those, like the TCCO video that I did with the tape, that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time kind of speeding it up, slowing it down, adding certain elements to kind of make it easier to understand. But I like that. I like the feedback that I got on that. That's what we did in Tandem Trader. A lot of that type of action. So that's why it took so long. But I like the feedback that I got on that type of stuff. So I'll be looking at that, as well as you guys mentioned some great ideas, some great feedback for videos that would make sense for YouTube. So I'm going to work on working on a few of those kind of concepts, ideas, and break down some trades a little bit better and more. I do this anyway every day in the room. I do a daily video of my wins, my losses, and kind of, if I overstayed, I talk about it. I talk about where I should have stopped out. I talk about, this is where one of my flaws is. This is me being stubborn, stuff like that. So, a lot of people get good stuff out of that just because they're making the same mistakes too. So I do go over those, and I also go over the wins and why I thought a certain thing, what key levels were important, and that's really been the biggest thing lately in this market, because there's just so much volume. There's so much volume every single day. It's not like prior years. At prior years, there's some crazy momentum moves. There's some wild 500% ripper here, 200% there, 100% there. But these ones are continual, over and over, multi-day, multi-month runs. And SAVA is a perfect example of that. So if you start to get stubborn, if you start to fight this trend, if you start to think that it's gone too far, that's where you run into issues. And, I ran into some issues the last quarter of 19. I picked up a few negative kind of traits, it's kind of overstaying, thinking that I had a right read on things, and I didn't. Eventually, yes, I was right, but that doesn't mean they're going to continually move a lot higher in the meantime. So, a lot of these pre-2 p.m. type moves that you see, where they exhaust everybody out and then pull back at the close. A lot of times I know that's going to happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're patient. So I've been working a lot on, sitting on my hands, being patient for that, because what happens is, not even if you lose, I mean, even if it's a minimal loss, or even if you make a small gain, you exhaust yourself. You exhaust yourself on the front side of that move. And when you exhaust yourself, guess what? You miss the other move. You miss the real move. So I use CLVS as an example. Everybody's trying to find the top, trying to find the top, trying to find the top. And if you actually look back and look at, how it was ripping and where it found support, once it broke that actual support, you still had $6 of downside. RAD, same thing. RAD this past week. You can try to find the top. That was another one where I used it as an example in my videos for members, as well as in the scan. Not necessarily where it was a big loss. It was I had a good read on the intraday trade, where it was starting to fade and fade and fade, but it was still holding that same level of support. And because I had a good average, because I scaled into the winner, because it was on the verge of that crack, I stayed in it, even though there was 5, 6, 7, 8 times that it didn't break. And it should have died, it didn't. It should have died, it didn't. It should have died, it didn't. And by the time it swiped back up, instead of just taking it all off for flat, I kind of sat there. I'm like, well, I'm not crazy sized in yet. Maybe they're just trying to work out the people that shorted the weakness. I'm gonna wait, and then it goes another 20, and then I'm gonna wait, and then it goes another 20. And so you just wasted 40, 50, 60 cents when you could have just been out. It wasn't breaking that big support. And the thing to remember, even on FCEL is a recent one, right? PTI was another one. The moves are so big that when and if they do crack, sure, they might have that one big washout, and you're like, damn, I wish I caught that. But once they do crack and once they do pull back and form the backside, the moves are so big, you're not going to miss. You're not going to miss the opportunity. There's plenty of opportunity on the backside of that trade if you're patient and you let that kind of support crack, the sentiment kind of change, and wait for that to turn. Because if you're in the trade and you're waiting and you're trying to find the top, you're going to be emotionally involved. You're going to get exhausted. You're going to be kind of fighting back and forth, and you're not going to feel good by the end of the day. So, and then there are those times where you've got to kind of dabble in there and get a feel for it. But the key is to recognize the dabble day, to kind of get a feel. Is this going to be the day that it cracks or not? And that, for example, is FCEL. And it was a little bit exhausting for me in the sense that 2 days in a row I had really, really good trades, and I missed the cover by a penny. By 1 penny. I was at 221 one day and it went down to 222. And by the time that, it flushed out, and then it went right back up to 232, 235, then back up to 240 within, 3 minutes. So here I am, all right, I missed 221, I'm going to wait, maybe I can get some dips along the way. Nope, just continually go 240, 250. So it's that kind of stuff when you're trading the front side of the move. But with that said, the day that we did nail it, the day that we got the big move, the 290 short to, the $1.80, $1.90s, you have to be in there. You got to get a feel for what's going on. I like to see how much competition there is on the offers. So, I'm out there, it's a little bit 275s, 280s, 283s, 289 had a huge seller, 290s had a ton of size. I mentioned in the room that I felt like they were using 3 as that emotional, the psychological spot, right? So everybody's panicking. They're like, oh my gosh, we're about to rip through 3. And, it very well could have. But if you were watching the action, the tape, the volume, there was a lot of volume going off on the offer, and they weren't budging. So they were using that fear of the 3 break to really, use that liquidity to exit quite a bit. So that's why I got involved that day, and plus it was an A+ setup. Those are the days you want to risk, and it's just, again, you can't exhaust yourself leading up to that trade, because if you do, you're gonna say, hey, it's already got me once, twice, 3 times, whatever. Just like Phil Godecker, he takes 1 million paper cuts, but when he nails the trade, he nails the trade. And it's okay to get in there, but make sure that you're taking paper cuts. Don't get in there and say, it's gonna pull back. I don't know when, but it has to pull back. And then you end up losing 50 cents. And then you end up losing another 50 cents. Same thing this week with NEO. Another one where, you can get in there, but the key is, I was early, but I didn't size. I did not size until we saw that big exchange of shares, that psychological level of 5 coming up, huge amount of volume, and we're getting into this market where there's hundreds and 200 million shares traded on these things. It's insane. So anyway, those are the current thoughts with the current market environment and whatnot, and kind of what I look for. Rather than trying to decipher what the tape is suggesting, like big stuff here and this flushes out and blah blah blah. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for key levels. I'm looking for where the continual seller is, where the continual support is, and I'm making decisions from there. And you'll notice, even if you go back through FCEL, you'll notice that there was a trend day, like 220 to 26, or I think it was 230 to 265, something like that. And it was just trading that trend all day. And so people get fear of missing out of the downside, so they slam into the 230s, and then they support it, and then they cover into the 250s. Do it again, do it again, do it again. So that's the kind of market we're in. Same thing, NEO. And at some point, there's just too many shorts playing the same game. So SAVA is another example. Insane volume on Friday into the close, and huge seller at 1079 or 1077. I mentioned in the room. That's kind of where I started to get my thesis for a potential pullback. I felt like they were probably trying to hold it up for some covers, some intraday buy-ins, things like that before the weekend. but the amount of bids that were there was incredible. So I'm hoping that we're going to still have another opportunity. I'll go over that on the scan, but I'm hoping we still have a nice opportunity there, as long as 880s kind of bases. So, 880s doesn't get anybody out of the woods yet. Everybody's still bent up from 6s and 7s and 5s. So as long as 880s was the other level that I put in the room, I mentioned that, it's kind of starting to peak here, but 880s is your level. If 880s continues to support, if bids keep on, refreshing, then it's going to go higher. And that's exactly what happened. It continued to go, and we got a crazy squeeze on Friday. So last but not least, INPX. INPX was incredible. Nice way to kick off the new year, for sure. I was not expecting that. It was a great trend. It had broken out maybe a week and a half ago or so, maybe 2 weeks. So I remembered it, right? So that's why we run scans, and we continually remember, okay, yeah, this one just ran last week. It was a nice chart. It had a lot of volume, whatever. So the next day it had gapped up. I think it was a Thursday. And Tex-Mex had a great eye on it, and I wasn't even watching it. And he's like, kind of like this one. This chart set up pretty nicely. And, we could maybe get a breakout towards 12, 15, something like that. 100% agreed. And that was almost a 40% move. And a lot of people ignore these, and, most should, because it is a crazy move. But, 11 cents to 15 cents would have been 30, 40, whatever percent move. So I went ahead and got in there, and a lot of people were buying the breakout. And so in the room, I was like, I see people getting excited about it, like anticipating that 15 break. And I'm like, listen, you got to be buying the dips. If you're interested in something like that, you need to be buying the flushes with the risk based off, say, a dime or VWAP or whatever the support level is, rather than buying those breakouts. You don't want to be doing the same thing as everybody else, because everybody that bought the 12s gave an awesome entry to me into the close on, I think it was on Tuesday. So I held that over as I wrote, and so then it gapped up to the 16.5 level, or actually 19. I was at the gym, so I missed it. So I ended up selling maybe like, I don't know, a tenth of it at 16.5, and I was like, you know what? This thing is still holding really, really well. So I actually added that back at 18 and more. And so I scaled up, and I just held it. And what I was really happy about was not overholding it like LMPX. LMPX was still a good trade, but again, just like I wrote on scan, it was just too much slippage. I was long 8, 9, 10, but it goes to 40, and I sold a third to a fourth up top, sold some more, I got down to about half, and then, I overheld more than half, or about half of it, down to 30s and 20s, and it was just, wasted money. How many are actually going to go to 100? How many are going to keep on going? Not many. So I need to be acting on the side of probability, and I definitely did not on LMPX. So still, great trade. It's still over a double, but 400 or 500% move is very, very rare, and I need to do the right thing every single time and not go for the home run. So with that said, I was really happy with my exits on INPX. Even if it goes to $1, I don't care. But I made it to, made it 237, 37.5, 37.2 on half. And then I sold the rest 42s, 45s, 55s, and 60s. And then I got short, and I posted that trade. You guys could see that as well. So that was the start of the year. So it was nice, big fireworks to start the year, and it's a good way to start the January. And with that said, got to put the brakes on and not be all crazy and just start chasing everything because of that. It's business as usual. Next, as I say online a lot, it doesn't matter. It was a big trade. Next, because if you come in with the mentality that you just killed it on one stock, it's gone on the next one. So anyway, let's just jump into what we got going on here for the week ahead. Again, usually my scans are 10 to 15 names long. My goal is to zone in on 2 to 3 names in the morning, 2 main ones, and then maybe another 2 from pre-market gainers, losers, whatever, in the morning. So typically I have 2 main watches and a couple secondary watches. So normally what I do is if I see charts that I like, I use the price alert feature that we have in the room. It will automatically alert you when a certain price level, you can set as many as you want, but when a certain level hits. And I know I've mentioned this before, but it's really been helping me not lose track of these names. And I'm not trying to trade everything, but when that A+ daily chart breakout setup sets up, it might not be that day that it goes. It might not be that week. But if you set something up, it's going to alert you right away. So there was a couple of those that hit this week that ended up providing some pretty nice trades for the room. So anyway, FCEL. Pull this up. FCEL, I think that it's going to kind of trade like NIO. I don't think that we're going to just flush out to 150. I think that this has a very, very strong shareholder base. I think that, just judging on how strong it was, I think it can still hang around. I think it's going to hang around the 180 to 230 level, 190 to 240 level longer than you think. However, if it has a big gap up and it ramps 10, 20 cents, I like that for a fade. I'll look for the fade back, and I'm not looking for a huge washout again. This thing, I think, needs to fall off people's radars, and then look for the trade later on if you wanted to be patient with it. But right now, I think that a 240, if it gapped to, so it closed around 206 or so. If it gapped up over 220, 215, 220, and ramps up to 240, I like that as potential failed follow through momentum. I'd be looking for that trade and then potentially fade it back to not necessarily red, but flat, something like that. But I think as far as the huge range, I think that's going to take a chill pill for a bit. Week open, red to green is also ideal, just like we had on Friday. That was a nice opportunity, but if you try to squeeze too much out of this, I think you're gonna be focusing too hard and probably waste energy on this when other names are going to be providing you a better opportunity. So, with that said, NIO was the same trade, and I actually took NIO. So NIO was exactly what I would do with FCEL, right? So NIO was a big move. Obviously it had 433 million shares, which is unheard of. But straight down, and then we got that big gap down. So this, I think, was in Tandem Trader, it was a BBRY example. And so it's after a huge momentum, big volume day, just like RAD as well, where it's red again, 2 days in a row. Third day gaps down, it flushes out, or gaps down and it doesn't flush out. Whatever one. Flush out is an opportunity, or if trend holds and it starts to rally for red to green. Those are two types of trades that I like, and that's the exact trade that I took in the room on Friday, where I got long, anticipating that red to green. And I sold about a quarter here, another little bit over here on the red to green, just expecting it to potentially fail, and then I moved on the trade. So the goal is the meat of the move. Don't try to get too much out of it, just like I said on FCEL. Because I think that the emotional trade, the reactive trade, the meat of the move is going to be off the open. And then otherwise, just wait for a setup. We can always have something like this set up 2 p.m. into the close and start to go. But I don't want to be too involved, forcing a trade intraday, burn out, exhaust myself, and actually miss a good trade. So see what happens with that one. SAVA was insane. And, look, calling it and trading it is two different things, right? And, sometimes it's frustrating that when I can see these things so far ahead. I mentioned that I felt like this was going to be something that we haven't seen in a while, in a long time. And I tweeted that I thought that it was going to go $7 to $10. and that was on the, I think it was, let's see, December 27th. Perhaps 7 to 10 parabolic move, and then some. Shorts are incredibly twisted. So that was the thought process that I had, but, obviously trading it's a different thing. It's a different ball game. It's super thin tape. And, I'm not going to sit here and say, I called it, nailed it, etc. when I didn't, I hope somebody nailed it because that was a really insane call and move and action. But I flipped it here and there on Thursday and Friday. It was not breaking down. You can go back in hindsight. You can see that it's just kind of churning. But when this swipe happened, I mean, in hindsight, all day versus VWAP would have been nice. But that's okay. A lot of action started to come in. 880s started to base. You can just draw a line right across this 880s. And once again, I know my cursor is not recording. I've been trying to fix it, but I can't figure it out. I have the settings selected, but whatever the case is, you can see these crosshairs, and my mouse is basically at the middle of the crosshairs. So when I'm talking, you can kind of make the assumptions. But 880s was that base. That was the first trap. And then they squeezed everybody out. And then 1080s, 1090s had quite a bit of inventory. Then 1079, 1077 was a hidden seller. What a hidden seller is, not necessarily a stuff move, but it was a seller not showing size, but just 20K going, 10K, 5K, 5K, 10K, 20K. But it was only showing, 100 shares or 1,000 shares or whatever it may have been. I recorded the price action, which I would suggest that you guys do, especially on these. I jumped in the lounge as it was happening to try to spell out exactly what I thought. That's how you learn it. There's no, what did you see that told you that it was a short kind of, there's none of that because it's always different. The idea is just to kind of get a full round feel for different types of stuff moves, different types of setups, things like that. So anyway, came back up, squeezed out the rest of the folks that started to get aggressive thinking it was over here, squeezed them out, and then they finally broke the 10 and ended up marching back up. Went back up to 10 after hours, and I'm not convinced that this is done yet. You can see that we've got 930s as pretty much the support level here. 930s also is the prior top that was on this blow-off move. And right over here at about 145 or so when the squeeze started. So as this trade progresses, the key levels for me, and as I said, it's not about these types of trades. It's not about this one stuff move or this one candle. It's about the overall trend, and I think that'll help you with trading these things. So in this case, 880s. As long as 880s holds, then I think that there is a potential in the week ahead for craziness. And whether that is 12 to 15, whether it's 12 consolidates for a while and goes nuts into 20, I don't know yet. But there was a lot of volume. There was insane volume. There's 10 million shares into the last hour and a half or so. It was just back and forth. So I don't know what their goal is. I don't know who's bent, but there's obviously a lot of people bent. So the fact that they let people kind of win into the close lets me or makes me believe that there could be more in the coming weeks. It had it closed out on the highs and really blown out 11 to 12. I would assume that was probably going to be the top for a little while. But the fact that it kind of came in, they still didn't let shorts out. And I don't think shorts are let out until it's back under 880s and then some. And the only reason I say that is because that's if they average up at 1050, 10, 9, and so on and so forth. I still don't think that they're going to be let out. I mean, everybody is pretty seriously bent here. So be cautious on this thing. We're going to have a lot of range. Expect $2 to $3 to $4 range on this stuff. Yuma was a nice opportunity. I got short into the pops. A newsletter came in. Same thing. You probably noticed by now, but pretty much marking the top on a bunch of stocks. And as soon as they changed that tide, right? So, there might be a lot of folks on the short side, but all of a sudden you bring in 1,000 people all on the long side, and it doesn't budge. Where do you think they're going to go? So that provided some great opportunities. They stuffed it nicely, and it unwound throughout the day. I did not hold the entire day, unfortunately. I kind of just traded this first move, and then I lost it off radar. So higher the better. Usually I look left. Ideally, we get some type of push towards 420s. But anything's possible too with news over the weekend, any headlines, things like that. Not that this should be moving, because at the end of the day it's just a trading vehicle. But anything energy, oil related, it's going to be kind of a headline in the game. And if too many people got short, and then we get some crazy headlines that support energy and oil, support a bid. Then who knows? Maybe we get a squeeze. So cautiously optimistic, higher the better, looking for the backside. Cautiously optimistic about the potential of another short trade. But be cautious Tuesday, Wednesday on T+2 if there's any headlines related to the sector. INPX, you guys saw the chart probably. I got short out of the morning action, this parabolic move. The key level for me was that 55 level, and once again, I talked to you guys. It's not about one candle. It's not about one volume spike, one bidder, one offer, anything like that anymore. Not in this stuff. The volume's just too large. You gotta actually believe kind of what you see, because the volume is literally that large. So it comes down to key levels, volume, things like that. So you got to let them kind of come in, let them start to sell it off a little bit, and note that 55 and 58 are the key levels. That was the levels that I put in the room. So I was dabbling in, scaled, anticipating that. But once I was able to pretty much identify a seller here, and you can see an attempt, fail. And what you'll see a lot is sometimes after they've been selling a lot, rather than just stay there, they'll actually pull their offers and let it kind of jump up a little bit, because that's going to trigger all kinds of stops, all kinds of emotions. If I'm oversized, I'm going to panic a little bit probably and maybe swipe the offer. And that brings in even more liquidity. So a lot of times you see this one last hurrah where they kind of lift up and then the pullback comes. And you saw that on SAVA and a few other ones. So keep that in mind. I try not to oversize, especially if I'm anticipating, because you're going to fall for that and you will be covering into that push when in the end you were right. So this kind of goes back to what I was originally saying is, there is a lot of downside still after the original move. So at any rate, nice pullback, covered the flushes, re-added some, covered the flush, and that was it for me. Nice opportunity, and as I said, I sold the rest of the long as well. I got that, and I got this short over here in the room. I shorted about 46 down to 40s and 39s, but I actually had a fat finger, and I covered, and I was actually long quite a few on accident, but I pretty much sold most of them, almost all of them right away. So anytime that happens, I don't play any games. My goal was only to cover it, but I forgot that I had already had a cover in there, anticipating the flush. It was a wish order, so I pretty much double covered, and so I wanted to make sure that I was not playing any games into the open. GHSI. This one, nice opportunity. Again, you got to understand what kind of market we're in, right? So we just had INPX. Everybody is looking for the next one. I'm not saying this is the next one, but my point is that everybody is willing to pay higher for things like this. So this one took off, nice little breakout over here through 24, 25, rips up to 29. And right over here at 11 a.m., I said I'm buying dips versus 28 risk or VWAP. And my goal and my plan is to hold it overnight. So I had a nice little breakout, locked some in along the way. I didn't want to get too aggressive just in case this was just an INPX type FOMO. You know, everybody was chasing this one because they thought it was going to be INPX. So normally I would probably dabble over here. I wanted to see this start to base and consolidate before I started to add back. But I didn't get any ads. I had basically took off half. It was a nice trade up to 38s, 40s from 30. And then I took off a little bit more into the 42, 43, 44 after hours. Nice breakout there. So I have some, but just not what I had, just because I don't want to get too excited. I'd rather everybody else get too excited. Look, if it continues to go, I have no problem paying higher. But I'm going to wait for the trend to confirm and go from there. LB, and you'll also see the scan's a little bit different. Like IMPX and GHSI, you'd never see these on my scan. But, when you have 100 million, 400 million, 200 million shares traded, it's worth it. It's worth it to me. But anyway, LB, I'd be looking for a weak open, potentially off of 1880s, 1870s, and then rally back. We might see a nice little push towards 1950, something like that. BILI, this was nice. I got long a little bit Friday over here on the dips. I missed this swipe up. This was actually a red to green. I normally would be involved over here, but it just kind of was off my radar. 2 days in a row now. Pretty nice move. We might have another big push like this. You can see most of the moves happen pretty quickly. So I'm cautiously looking to join the trend. I would definitely short this if the trade presented itself, but the most important part on a move like this, especially a daily chart like this, make sure you cover. So if you nail it and it flushes out, make sure you're there, because a lot of times it's going to flush out, come back real fast, and then start to grind, and you're going to be upset that you didn't cover. So anyway, definitely looking for a weak open, potential rally back. We'll see what happens with that. Nice volume the last 2 days. I really like stuff with good volume like that, 10 million shares. MAXR, nothing I'm too crazy about. Steady ripper so far. This is one I want to be focused on. Set some price alerts, 18, 19, 20. And then on the way back down, set some price alerts. I'm not trying to find the top here. And I think we're going to have a nice $1 to $2 type of move. But whether that's at 20, 22, or Monday, I don't know yet. So I want to be familiar with this chart. Does not mean I'm going to be all over it. CNAT, we are coming up on a key level here. So, we need some serious volume, 20, 30 million shares and over 46 cents. So 45, 46 cents is into the gap. Right market for it. Chart is of interest. Nothing I'm long, just I want to be familiar with it. I've seen it. If I see a PR, if I see volume, I'm already ready to go. So that's the only reason why I have it on here. TEDU, nice consolidation day. We had a little bit of a pullback, and then it started to kind of come back. So situations like this, usually I look for it to kind of base 250s. We might have that nice squeeze out. We might have another buck here, 350, something like that. And then I'd be looking for an ONCY style fade. So once again, you don't need to find the top. Wait for a newsletter potentially come in. This one had the high was 602. Newsletter bought it $6, and they all chased it, and they got creamed. So wait for either a situation like that where newsletters are trying to force it into some type of circuit halt. They bring in all their sheep, and it reverses because of unnatural causes, or wait for it to actually crack by itself naturally, and then join the backside of the move. So this is kind of what I'm thinking about for TEDU. Again, nothing on Monday that I'm super crazy excited about, but I'm familiar with the chart. I know that if it goes 350, I'm gonna be prepared for it. GE, big vol and nice breakout, good range. Again, staying familiar. It's abnormal volume for GE. Abnormal range for GE, so it has my interest. Big gap up, look for the fade. Weak open, look for the rally. ADNT, chart potential. This one's a little bit of a choppy name, but looking for the unwind potentially finally towards 19s, maybe crack some lows here or whatnot. But you can see that somebody's always kind of picking it up a little bit higher, but also somebody's always selling it a little bit lower. So we're starting to kind of come into a much tighter range here, and maybe we do a channel kind of breakdown. NLTX, potential pullback again. They raised, I forget what it was, 880s, 8 something, but it's been pretty steady on the upside since then. This was the first day it finally pulled back, so I'd be looking for 11 push, 1120 push, and then potentially join the backside. Last two, PULM. This one was some really nice volume on Thursday. The trade did not come, in a squeeze kind of fashion. There was a huge buyer here. I was buying weakness, and I did sell into the ramps. But at this point, I am looking for a potential of a breakout if we get another PR, if we get more volume, if we break 170, 180s. So I have bought a little bit on the dips versus 140. I don't care about it if it goes under 140s. But I am using that. I dabbled in a little bit just in case. If it starts to kind of trend, I'd probably add a little bit, but I would not be scaling. I would not be anticipating a big move. I would not be all excited about it unless we're over the 170 resistance and we break out through that 180s. This has a history of doing those types of moves, so that is why I'm interested, not to mention the 30 some odd million shares. Let's see, 35, almost 36 million shares that it traded the other day. So in this case, I think that shorts are very much involved. I think they're very aggressive here. And on Friday we had 3 million shares, 3.9. So you have 10% of the volume that it had on Thursday. So if it has 10%, you figure maybe on Monday it might only trade 2 million shares. So then if it starts to retake that 170 level, 180 resistance on 500,000 shares, there's no way that shorts covered from that 36 million share day. This is the same conversation we had with HEPA, even SAVA and BPTH. I'm not saying BPTH at all. This is not a low float stock. But the point is that there is a huge amount of volume that churns one day, and then it all goes to, it's just gone. And so if there is still 1,500,000, 1 million, 1.5 million, however many shares short, and the volume goes to 500,000, there's no way they can cover. So if it starts to go 170s, 180s on a small amount of volume, like we saw on HEPA before that big breakout, we had the same discussion on that one. That's when I'm interested. But for now, I'm going to assume that it's going to fail. For now, I'm going to assume that it fades under 140s. But I will dabble there, and if it holds, then at least I'll have a little bit of a position so I can scale up a little bit faster. Last but not least, nothing really crazy on this one, RUBY. I've been just kind of watching it fade every single day. So if it provides an opportunity to get short and join that fade, I'd love to. I think it could be, making some new lows here soon. Under 7, something like that. So again, that's my goals for this week, or at least for Monday, and then looking forward. Every day we wake up with something crazy. The key is to kind of sit on your hands a little bit. You don't always need to be the first one in. Don't exhaust yourself. Be patient. Before I forget, we need a winner. And let's see here. I will reply right now. Trade in Color, who's always been, on all our videos and Twitter and whatnot, always responding and thankful and whatnot. You've got a free month in the room. Like I said, every month we're going to do 1 free month of IU. And then the other times we'll either do Momo Trader's book, we'll do t-shirts, and all kinds of other stuff. So right now I've got to send out stuff to 2 people. So I will try to get that done this week. But everybody else should have received everything so far. And that's the game plan. So I hope you guys have a good good rest of the weekend. Hopefully the Patriots have some good action tonight. I am recording this on Saturday, so by the time you're watching this, you're going to know whether or not to give me crap for the Patriots or not. So hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend. Like I said, we'll catch you in the room. If you guys have any questions about Investors Underground and joining up, anything related to it, reach out. You can always just leave a comment or cam@investorsunderground.com, and we're more than happy to answer questions. And hopefully you guys saw the special that we sent out with Michelle, and that was a pretty good deal for hers. And she's a swing trader, and she's been on fire lately. So this is really her market. And there's times when people kind of heat up, and then there's times when people are they got to take their foot off the gas, and she's been heated up for quite some time. So that's it. Oh, Piton, by the way, finally back up some. So I'm still there. I did take some off, as I mentioned every time. The 32s, I think, maybe a little higher, and then a little bit more. So we'll see what happens. $1 a day, I'd take that. They report in a month, so there's still time. But I don't really know how I feel about the holding into that earnings report. But maybe that's where the actual move happens. But I think at that point it's more of a gamble-ish to me in my opinion. So if I did hold it, I'd probably be even less size because I have too many right now to kind of hold that into that. So, all right, we'll see you in the room on Monday.